Spring training update. Cory Provus, our guest once again, Twins broadcaster, as we come to you from Fort Myers before a Sunday game as the Twins are hosting the Yankees. Number of questions, Cory, to kind of get your perspective because you get to see the Twins and get the inside scoop. Right away, you got to ask about Buxton. Specifically, his hitting, on base. Some things aren't quite there yet. Is he going to make the trip north with the Twins or not for the center fielder position?
I think he will, Jim. I don't think he's had the amount of at-bats, played the amount of games anybody envisioned. Now, the last few, he's been out with illness, but he's back in the lineup as we tape today against the Yankees here in Fort Myers. I felt all along, and I think everybody agreed it was his to lose. While the numbers aren't great, I don't think he's lost it. So I think that, yes, I think there's a great chance that Byron Buxton will be out there on April 4 in Baltimore.
Awfully exciting player, we all agree on that. For the most part, the key players on the team, the starters, are hitting better than normal. Offense seems to be better than it would have been last year.
It has to be. There were a lot of fluke things that kind of went with the team last year. I don't want to say they were all flukes, but I look back at why the Twins were playing relevant baseball last year, Jim, then two things really come to mind. They were great in the month of May when they won, I think, 20 or 21 games in that month. Secondly, they were really good at home. They were near dominant at home until maybe the last 6 weeks of the season. Those two things were huge in the fact that the Twins won 83 games. But if you break down some of the raw numbers, the offensive numbers in particular, people want to beat up the pitching in prior years, and I think that's fair, but the offense bears some of this as well. Last year, the Twins were in the American League. They were dead last in on-base percentage as a team. They were 13th in team OPS. They were middle of the pack in runs scored. It's hard to be a consistent winning team if you're that bad offensively, so I think that's why the addition of Byung-Ho Park was such a key acquisition. Now there's some unknown about him. I'm sure we'll get to him momentarily. But the offense as a whole needs to improve, and right now when I make out my lineup card every day down here, it's the best looking lineup on paper that I've seen in now my 5th season now with the team.
And of course, you came in for the first 3 years, weren't all that healthy, but last year better and coming along this year. So talk about what was new last year was Paul Molitor as manager. Your overview of his first year heading into year number 2 for Paul Molitor as our manager.
The thing that really stood out to me with Paul, and I can't speak of the X's and O's, that would be more for the players, but what I took away from last year was just being around Paul, his daily media sessions before the game, sometimes after the game. He rarely played when I played that card. He rarely played, when I played, this is what I did. Or when I played, this is how I would have handled that at bat. Or this at bat reminds me of facing so-and-so back in the 80s. He rarely played that card, and I think that went over very well inside the clubhouse. He made the hardest game in sport look very easy at times. It's a very challenging game, as you know, as I think many do. Yet he made it look easy, and it's not, and I think that the guys in the clubhouse really appreciated how tough and difficult this game can be. So more than X's and O's and all that's what I took away, how he just kind of removed himself as Paul Molitor, the player, and tried to be a new person, if you will, a new role in being a big league manager for the first time.
Cory Provus is our guest as we broadcast from before the Twins-Yankees game here on March 20th down in Fort Myers, Florida. Number 5 pitcher in the pitching rotation. What do you think?
As we sit here right now, I think it's Tommy Malone, but that is subject to change. I think he has been better than Ricky Nolasco has down here. I think it also presents a left-handed option that the Twins don't have otherwise. So I think Tyler Duffy right now is the 4 and Tommy's the 5, and what that means for Ricky, that's going to be kind of interesting to see if indeed that's the route that they go the next few weeks.
What about the bullpen? After Perkins, Jepson, and May, how do you think that's going to fill in? I know there's some questions yet.
It's a great question because I think the team will leave with the 12-man pitching staff, 5 starters, 7 relievers, and Perk, Jepson, May, and Fiend, those guys will be there. And say Ricky's the long guy, there's your 5, and that leaves you 2 spots to be had. Do they go with the second lefty? If they do, a guy like Dan Runsler has looked good. He's not on the roster. A guy like Fernando Abad has looked okay to me. He's not on the roster. Taylor Rogers is in the roster. He's coming off a really good outing against Baltimore, but can he back it up now and do it out of the bullpen? He started that game. It was kind of a spot start. So Rogers, I think, is in the mix. I think Ryan Presley from the right side has looked really good. I don't want to rule out Ryan O'Rourke either from the left side. But from the right side, I think Ryan Presley has been impressive. I think that's a guy that has has worked his way, not a lot by any means, but has certainly worked his name into the competition elite camp of the team.
Cory Provus, our guest. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about, well, maybe Park, Sano. Also want to ask a little bit about those guys that had the sophomore slump last year. We're coming back right after this on Ingstead, Minnesota Radio.